All right, everybody, it's Chris with Drop Dice. So I'm back this week doing a little bit different of a video than I normally do. I did a channel update video and I asked what you guys would be interested in. And one of the things that was brought up was possibly doing maybe some L5R beginner videos, because we have a lot of like Dungeons and Dragons and Fate beginner videos out there. Well, not a lot, but for Fate, but there's some great ones by Red Dice Diaries if you're looking to join Fate or try it out. So what I decided was I haven't really seen a whole lot of Legend of the Five Rings, and because of some input from different viewers, I thought that I'd go ahead and start doing Legend of the Five Rings, or L5R School. Now, in L5R School, essentially, I'm going to pick an aspect of the game, and I'm going to kind of define it, talk about what it is, and it's going to be a little segmented videos, kind of like what Red Dice Diaries did with Fate. Now, what I'd like to talk about is the most basic part of the game, the system, and what it is. So the system itself is called Roll Keep. You use D10s, and essentially what happens is you get a certain amount of D10s that you roll, and then you keep another amount of dice. I know it sounds crazy, but it's that simple. So let's talk about how this actually works in the grand scheme of the game. So let's start with a little bit of background knowledge. So first off, inside the game, your character sheet has 5 rings. The last one being Void, which is special, and I'll do a video on Void a little bit more, but we're going to talk primarily about the first 4 here. The first one is Air, which has 2 traits associated with it. Each ring has 2 traits, one mental and one physical, and their names are going to be pretty obvious. So for Air, you have Awareness and Reflexes. For Earth, you're going to have Willpower and Stamina. For Fire, you're going to have Intelligence and Agility. For Water, you're going to have Perception and Strength. And then, like I said, Void is separate, and we're going to do a different video on that, so don't get too caught up in Void just yet. So how this works is essentially those are your stats. Now, your ring also increases as your stats progress, but how the ring increases is increasing your traits. So if you all your traits start at 2 out of a possible 10 that you can have. Now, if you choose to raise, let's say, your awareness in Air, what's going to end up happening is the awareness trait will go up to 3, but your reflexes is still 2. Your ring is going to remain 2 until both of them are at least 3. So if you actually went to awareness 4 and then turned around and got reflexes 3, your ring trait would become, or your ring would become 3, because it's the number that they have in common. Hopefully that is kind of a clear way to understand how that works. Some basic ideas of the game. So when you get your D10 and you roll it, if you happen to get a 10 or 0, if you have the fancy L5R dice, if you have the clan symbol on there, that's usually their 10. That means that the dice explodes. When a dice explodes, it gets to re-roll again. And if you keep hitting 10s, you keep going. So it can actually take someone who is less skilled and show, you know, a miraculous success out of sheer luck. And there are ways to kind of play with the dice outside of this explosion mechanic, but that's one of the things that you need to be aware of. Also, to keep things nice and simple, remember the traits are 2 out of 10 when you first get them. Well, the dice pool itself has a maximum of 10 as well. So it's easy to remember, D10s, max of 10 in most things. Easy, right? So with the dice pool having a max of 10, if you have any of the roll side increase past 10, like let's say you have 12 dice to roll and you keep 3, what's going to end up happening is for every 2 over the roll side, you are going to get 1 additional keep die. So essentially what's going to end up happening is that 12 keep 3 is going to become 10 keep 4. So you're going to roll 10 dice and keep 4. Now, the ones that you keep are actually entirely up to the player. Most every person is going to keep their larger numbers, but in certain situations, if you feel that you would like the story a little bit better to go with a smaller result, or you don't want to deal as much damage, you absolutely have that capability available to you. Now, where the dice pool gets a little tricky is occasionally, it's not extremely common by any stretch, you can actually have over 10 in both categories, having something like roll. The book gives an example of roll 13, keep 9. Well, the 2 that would bring it to 12 would actually go over and make that roll 11, keep 10 now. Well, what happens is for every 1 over that it is, you get a +2 bonus to your ultimate results. So now it's roll 10, keep 10, +2. Another example they give is roll 14, keep 12, and then that becomes the 4 times 2 is 8, plus the 2 is another 4, so that's a total of 12. So it becomes roll 10, keep 10, plus 12. And that is an outrageous amount of dice and capability right there. More than likely, you are probably not going to get to that relatively soon in the game, just to give you a heads up. But essentially, you build your dice mechanic understanding these things. And what I'm going to talk about is specifically how it works with skills. Combat, it works very similar, but the game, I think, has more relevance in skills overall. So let's talk about target numbers. So a target number is basically how hard it is to hit something. In D&D terms, it would be the equivalent of a DC. They're broken down by difficulties, just like in D&D. And if you notice, there's mundane, very easy, easy, average, moderate, difficult, very hard, heroic, and impossible. Now, remember that exploding die. If I only have 2 dice, but I keep exploding like a champ, I could actually get a 70-something. I've seen it happen. It's ridiculous. And what I like to do in my campaigns is when I end up with a player who gets like a really high thing like that, it is like an impossible legendary thing. It's going to be something that people kind of talk about. Now, they give some examples of what physical and menial versions are on this chart. This is actually straight out of the player's handbook, and it's also inside the DM screen if you happen to get your hands on one of the player-created DM screens that are out there. So basically, like I said, you have your skill, you roll it, and you find the results. So let's talk about how that works. So investigation is a skill that is underneath the perception trait. So what you're going to roll is your skill plus the trait associated with it. You're going to keep the trait. That is very common for most every roll in the game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build my dice pool of 3 dice, go ahead and roll those things, and then I will get some results. And what I got here was, right, so there is a problem with this overlay that I made, and I just realized it. The math is incorrect on this screen. So let me correct this, and I'll add a note to the end of this video. Essentially, I added up all the dice, and I really shouldn't have done that. So what I did here is I got a 10, and then I exploded again, got another 10, and got a 9. That's why I've got them kind of stacked up over there. Yep. A 3 and a 5. So in reality, my total should actually be 24, or excuse me, 34, because we've got 10, 20, 29, and then the 5, so 34, not 37. So that is basically how it's done. My math is bad. Please ignore that. I was trying to make this overlay very quickly so that I could get this done because I have a game starting in a little bit here. But that is basically how a skill in most any role is done inside the system. Now let me switch back over here. As I always do, I always keep the Q&A on. If anybody is viewing, has any specific questions about these topics and things like that, you can bring it up. Like I said, this time I'm a little short on time. I'm just going to check it real quick, see if I have any questions, and it looks like I am in the clear. If you guys do have any questions about this video and you do happen to catch me on the next L5R school video and want to bring those up, or shoot me a message, ask me in the comments, all of those are acceptable, and I will answer your questions there. As always, guys, thank you for tuning in. Feel free to share, like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I will see you guys at the gaming table.